In the 1980s, crack cocaine exploded across American cities. It wasn't just a drug, it was a phenomenon that rewrote the geography of our neighborhoods overnight. Entire neighborhoods were devastated. Addiction surged, violence followed, and the fabric of community life began to unravel under the weight of an unprecedented epidemic. Prisons were filled to capacity. You were told this happened because of street gangs, small-time pushers, and local cartels. You were told it was a local problem. But you were not told who was moving the product across borders. You were not told who was ensuring the runways stayed clear and the radars stayed dark. The supply lines didn't start in the streets. They started in the shadows of foreign policy, where the lines between statecraft and crime blurred into a dark alliance. Welcome to the Footnote Files, where history doesn't disappear. It gets classified. I'm Sarah A. Morris. Every story has a footnote that changes the context. Today, we examine a controversy that spans from the jungles of Nicaragua to the streets of Los Angeles. This is about the gap between what we were told and what was documented. This is not a conspiracy theory episode. This is a paperwork episode. We are following the signatures, the memos, and the declassified reports that were buried for decades. The official story was simple, and it was broadcast into every living room in America. Street gangs imported cocaine. They converted it to crack. They were the villains. The narrative focused entirely on the street level. It depicted a war being fought block by block, but the cameras rarely looked up to see where the pipelines originated. The government response was swift and legislative. Mandatory minimum sentences and three-strike laws were enacted, disproportionately targeting the end users and street-level dealers. This was the war on drugs, a campaign that filled prisons to the breaking point while leaving the massive international supply lines almost entirely untouched and unexamined. But in the mid-'80s, some journalists asked a different question. If the streets were flooded, where was the cocaine coming from? Who had the resources to move tons across borders? Who was protecting the supply lines? Why were major traffickers repeatedly avoiding serious prosecution while the streets were being swept clean of the people they supplied? During the 1980s, the U.S. government backed Contra rebels fighting Nicaragua's socialist government. It was a cornerstone of Cold War foreign policy in the Western Hemisphere. Congress, however, was wary. They passed the Boland Amendment, banning direct or indirect funding to the Contras for the purpose of overthrowing the Nicaraguan government. But the war continued anyway. The enterprise, as it became known, needed money. And money, it turns out, has no political affiliation. It only needs a market. In August 1996, the San Jose Mercury News published a series titled Dark Alliance. Journalist Gary Webb had spent a year following a trail that no one else wanted to see. He linked major LA crack dealers, including the infamous Freeway Rick Ross, to traffickers like Danilo Blandon, who had deep connections to CIA-backed Contra networks. Webb's reporting suggested that drug money helped fund the Contra war effort when official funding was cut off. Most importantly, it suggested that U.S. intelligence knew. The reaction was immediate, but not in the way you might expect. Instead of investigating the allegations, major media outlets like the New York Times and the Washington Post attacked the messenger. They focused on minor technicalities to discredit the entire series. Webb's career was destroyed, his reputation shattered. He became a cautionary tale for investigative journalists. But years later, internal government reports quietly admitted the core truth. The CIA had relationships with traffickers. They knew about the drug activity, and they looked the other way. The reports confirmed that the Dark Alliance was more than just a headline. It was a reality of a foreign policy that prioritized geopolitical goals over the safety of American streets. In the aftermath, the disparity was glaring. No intelligence officials went to prison for their role in facilitating the pipeline. No architects of the policy were ever charged. But millions of Americans paid the price, mostly Black and Latino individuals who were swept up in the mandatory minimum net. They were arrested for possession, for addiction, for being the target of a one-sided war. They were punished for surviving in an economy that had been flooded with cheap narcotics, a flood that was allowed to happen by the very authorities who were supposed to protect them. The scandal isn't just that drugs existed. The scandal is that their distribution aligned neatly with foreign policy goals. It was convenient for some and catastrophic for others. The scandal is that institutional accountability was non-existent. The system was ruthless downward and gentle upward. The laws were applied based on where you stood in the hierarchy of power. When state interests and illegal drug flows intersect, the casualties are always the same. The communities without a voice. The neighborhoods without a lobbyist. You are taught that crack destroyed communities. What you are not taught is how many powerful people benefited from that destruction. How many look the other way memos were signed. History isn't just a record of what happened. It's a record of what we choose to remember. And more importantly, what we are encouraged to forget. But the paperwork remains. The footnote is where the truth usually hides. And once you read it, you can't unread it. I'm Sarah A. Morris. Next time on the Footnote Files, a medical experiment that lasted 40 years. A study that became a synonym for institutional betrayal. Where treatment existed, consent did not, and the government called it public health. Join us next time in the archives.